outspoken. She's not afraid to ask tough questions. She's not afraid to speak her mind. You've read her column. Maybe you're a fan on Facebook.
No topic is off limits. Straight to the point.
There's no chaser. You're now watching Straight Talk with Carla Zuill.
Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk. I'm your host, Carla Zuill. Now, you may have heard about her on Facebook, Dr. Nakia Walker, also known as the Sutra Doctor. Well, we have her here in studio. Dr. Nakia, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, Dr. Walker, I have to start from the beginning. Are you a doctor?
Yes, I am.
Of what?
My first degree is in Oriental medicine, so I am a doctor of Oriental medicine, which deals with acupuncture and massage and other Eastern therapies. Mm-hmm. And my second degree is I have a PhD in transpersonal psychology, and I specialize in relationships and sex therapy.
Now, some critics have said, oh, she's not really a doctor. And I think it's because you are very open about sexual therapy, specifically, particularly on social media. Is there a need in Bermuda? Did you find that there was a need for your occupation?
I think that it's a need worldwide, but especially in conservative places such as Bermuda, because when you have societies that are closed or conservative, whether it be due to social beliefs or religious beliefs, you tend to have people who feel confined and feel like they cannot express themselves in their relationships or their day-to-day lives. Now, what's interesting that a lot of people do not know is that the sex drive of the human being is actually second only to that of food.
Okay.
So when you begin to suppress your sex drive and to deny that sexual side of yourself, it creates a lot of other problems, both physiological and mentally.
Now, let me ask you, how did you decide to get into this occupation?
Okay, this is interesting. My mother, ever since I was young, before I could read, I remember she sat me down and she would put the Mommy and Me books in front of me. Mm-hmm. Now, the Mommy and Me books talk about how daddy loves mommy and how you came into being and, you know, touching and kissing and everything like that. And they do it in a tasteful way so that it's not, you know, exploitative or anything like that. But it always caught my mind. I would look at the pictures, then I would look at my parents and see if they are emulating what I'm seeing in the books. And a lot of times they did. So one day, I was driving home with my mom from the grocery store, and she says to me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "I want to be a sex therapist."
What was her reaction?
She started crying. She's in the church. She's an evangelist in the church. So I grew up in a very conservative household. And we had the books, first of all, my brother and I, because she wanted us to be familiar with sex, and she wanted us to know that no one's supposed to touch you in certain places and things like that. But she was not happy that I said sex therapist. And the reason why I said that, because even as a young girl, I noticed in the church, it was so taboo, sex. Oh, no touching, no kissing, no sex, no this, no that. And you was born in sin and everything else like that. But then here are these books saying that it's natural, it's an expression of love. This is what happens, and this is why you are here, because your mommy and your daddy loved you. So I found it interesting that on one side, you know, it's natural, but on the other side, it's forbidden. So I said, there has to be something to this sex thing.
So how long have you been practicing in Bermuda?
In Bermuda, I've been practicing for 5 years.
Response so far? Do you have a huge clientele?
Well, huge is subjective. I would say that I have clients, but they're very secretive about who they are and why they would come to me for treatment.
Now, what do you mean by that? Secretive about who they are?
Bermudians have this fear that if they go to a Bermudian healthcare provider, that everyone will know their business. They don't understand that I am bound legally by confidentiality laws. So I cannot disclose anything that is said. Even if you approach me on Facebook and you ask me a question, I cannot disclose that. Everything is encrypted on my computer, so no one else can't get a hold of that information. But they still prefer to keep it secret, even from their spouses. I have a lot of people that come to me and I'm saying, does your spouse know no. And I'm like, well, it's a sexual relationship between the both of you. You have to let them know that you have these concerns. So that's where it basically starts. Them feeling comfortable with their concerns so that they can share it with others.
Now, of course, you can't divulge specifics, but what are some of the concerns that have come across? What are some of the concerns that you have come across in your 5 years of practicing here?
Mainly, it is with women who are dissatisfied with their partners and they don't know how to say to their partners, say, listen, I would like if you do more of this, or if you do not do more of that, or I would like it if we actually have more sex. You'll be surprised how many women in Bermuda are complaining that their partners are not willing to be as sexually active as they are.
I find that interesting because it seems like there's a proliferation of cheating on the island. So are you saying that women tend to have higher sex drives than men?
From what I have seen in Bermuda, there's cheating on both parts. Traditionally, the male gets the bad name, but there's definitely cheating on both parts, and it's mainly because there's a breakdown in communication. The partners are not communicating to one another what it is that they need sexually.
Now let's talk about that. How, if you're partners, I would think that you would be comfortable with being able to say what your likes, dislikes, preferences are. So what type of tools do you offer to help bridge that communication gap?
Okay, at the core of most of these issues is the issue of shame. We carry a lot of shame regarding sex in our societies. Like I said, whether it be through socialism or religion, there is a lot of shame surrounding sexual acts. So we kind of feel like, no, I don't want to ask for this because him or her might think that I'm this or that. Or in the case of a lot of males, what I find is they do not want to ask their wives of certain acts because they feel that they will look at their wives differently. Yes, I want to experience this with my wife, but then after I do it, how am I going to look at her? Has she done this with other males? And so it becomes an issue of insecurity with the males. So they'd rather go out and be free with somebody else.
So you mean role playing, for example, or do you literally mean sexual acts?
Both. With role playing, some women refuse to do it because they feel as though, why should I have to be somebody else in order for you to want me? You know, with actual sexual acts or sexual positions, some women feel it's demeaning. You know, a lot of times women will watch porn or anything and they'll say, oh, I wouldn't do that. Or, you know, because they see the woman being treated badly, or because they've been taught that, you know, good girls don't do this or good girls don't do that. So when we're raising our young girls and our young men, we teach certain values to protect them, yes, but we don't teach them the flip side. No, you don't do this with everybody. But feel comfortable in yourself and with, you know, your body sexually.
So if I wanted to role play with my husband, I should have been raised, or it'll be ideal if I've raised to know that it's okay. It doesn't make me a bad person.
Yeah. It's actually only recently, since Christianity has spread to the Western world, that you do not see rites of passages, sexual rites of passages. It's in a lot of cultures still where they have sexual rites of passage. When you become of a certain age, usually with the female, it's when she has her menstrual cycle, her first menstrual cycle, and they're preparing her for marriage. And they prepare her for the role of a wife because in English, a wife is a noun. In many other cultures, it's a verb. It's not a title, it's actions. So they teach the female actions of love towards her husband. And that does include sexual acts. And it teaches her to be familiar with her own body, and it teaches her to be comfortable with that so that she can be sexually open with her husband, and vice versa. There's also rites of passage for males.
Such as what? The same thing, just a sexual act as such?
Right, and it teaches, with males, it's more of curving their drive. See, male and female are different. It's not that males want sex more or females want sex more. It's just that we relate to sex differently. So with the male, he always wants to conquer and expand. So he has to learn how to find that within his partner. So instead of being promiscuous and going to this woman and this woman and this woman and, you know, feeding his ego and feeling like, yes, I'm validated because all these women want me, these rites of passages actually teach the male to find that acceptance within his partner.
Now, for women, how is the message different?
For women, the message is different in the way that, see, women are receivers. So we always feel a level of vulnerability that males do not feel. The male enters into our bodies. So we have to be willing to be open and compassionate and inviting. Okay? And a lot of times we're not that way, especially if we feel that something else is going wrong in the relationship. So we tend to use sex as a weapon, or we tend to see sex as something that's very invasive. So psychologically, we have to learn how to be open and be compassionate and embrace the male.
Okay. Now, when we come back, I want Dr. Nakia to answer the question for me. Is monogamy realistic? We'll be right back after this break. Is it natural to expect one man and one woman to be monogamous at all times? This is what I'd like to ask Dr. Nakia Walker. Doctor, is it a realistic expectation?
It's a very realistic expectation. It's about choice, solely choice. I have people who say, well, such and such an animal has multiple partners, and you can point to the animal kingdom and you can say, well, this animal has multiple females or this animal has multiple males. But in the animal kingdom, there are also animals who are monogamous for life. We are classified as a mammal with higher awareness and higher intelligence. So it is solely choice, and it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on your upbringing. It depends on how you yourself view relationships and sexuality, and it depends on where you are in life.
But then you hear so many men saying, I just can't do it. Men aren't wired that way. There are so many beautiful women, and I've even heard someone say, well, a person can love you and have sex with someone else now and then, and that's okay. Do you buy into that?
Okay, the first point is, to date, there is no gene or chemical within the human body that makes a man more promiscuous than a female. They have tried to test testosterone and say that the theory of testosterone, well, males have more testosterone, so they're more sexually aggressive and, they're going to be more prone to cheat. That is false. Testosterone is linked to aggression, yes, but it is not linked to promiscuity. Testosterone does play a big part in sexuality in that it's a driving force. So you can say it is indirectly linked. But if you do comparisons and studies, there's no difference between the male and female sex drive. There is a difference in expression and what is needed in order to turn them on. But no, there's no biological basis for a male being more promiscuous than a female.
Now, what about, because I've heard it, I have to say, I've heard it so many times that I'm actually starting to believe it, that a man and a woman can love each other. And whether he or she has sex with someone else, it doesn't mean that they love the person any less, and people shouldn't really dwell on it. What do you say to that mindset?
What you should dwell on is the cheating aspect, the dishonesty. That's what you dwell on.
Is it cheating?
It is cheating if your partner's not consenting. There's so many dangers to that, whether it be through sexually transmitted diseases, psychological or emotional impairment, or anything like that. The thing is that you as a partner who are choosing to go outside of your marriage or your relationship, you're acting upon your choice, but you're not leaving your partner with much of a choice. You're not saying to your partner, this is how I feel. I feel that I do not want to be with one person sexually. Maybe I want to be with you intimately and to build a life with you, but sex-wise, I would like to explore other partners. If you cannot communicate that to your partner, I would even go as far as to say that maybe you are not sexually mature enough to even be having sex and be engaging in a committed relationship, because you cannot speak your truth. It is completely okay for you to say, I would like to have multiple partners if that's what you would want to do. And you should feel secure in yourself and know that this is my life, this is my reality, I create my own reality, and this is what I wish. And I would like to find a partner that wishes the same.
Now, talking about that, I've heard that there is a proliferation of swingers in Bermuda. What exactly is the swinging lifestyle for those who may not understand?
Okay, for those who may not understand, the swinging lifestyle is sort of, in Bermuda, it's very hush-hush, it's underground. And the reason why is because you being committed to a partner or being married in our society, it's seen as it should be one-on-one, and that's it. That's the way that God intended. You shouldn't entertain any other partners. Well, there are people who are married who do want to entertain other people. There are people who actually get sexual pleasure by watching their partner have sex with somebody else, and it actually brings them closer because it creates a charge in the room or the facility, wherever they are. It creates a charge of love and acceptance, and they like to share that with other people.
But some people may say that's totally disgusting.
But then it's not for them. My issue that I have is the judgmental part. Because whether you believe in God or whether you believe in Allah or whether you believe in any other entity, that's not the issue. You're not going to know the truth until you pass on anyway. So, and all these religions teach non-judgment and love and acceptance. So on the one hand, you may feel that it's not right for your walk. You may say, I'm a Christian and I do not believe in this and I feel that this is not okay for me. That is perfectly fine. This is what works for your relationship. But you really don't have the right to dictate to somebody else what works for theirs.
No, because you've talked about how some of our sexual perceptions come from our upbringing. In your opinion, at what age should we start to talk to our children about, not so far as the, like you talked about the Mommy and Me books, but I mean about sex, about love. At what age should you talk to your child from an educational perspective, not about pedophilia, but just about sex?
Your child is most impressionable around age 5. This is why you typically begin primary school at age 5. They start to detach from who they think they are in relationship to their parents to who am I? What do I want? So you're going from like the 2s and the 3s where it's mine, everything is mine, until the 5s. I'm in this world and this is what other people think of me. This is what I think of other people. So they're creating awareness. So around that age, I would say that it's not so much talking, it's action. You must display little actions between you and your partner. Ideally, you're in a 2-parent home. So you would display little actions of maybe a kiss on the cheek. And then when the child says, ew, you touch daddy, or you touch mommy, or you kiss mommy here and there, then you begin to explain, yes, that's because I love mommy, or yes, that's because I love daddy. So you go with the developmental stage of the child. Now, a teenager would be a lot different. When you become to the teenage years where, you know, we're exposed to a lot now through the internet, you know, social media and cable television. So you kind of have to start off younger with your children and explaining different behaviors and different sexual behaviors, because you just saying, oh, that's not for you, or that's when you're much older, that's not helping. You're actually leaving television and the internet to teach your children about a sensitive topic.
Now, this leads me to my next question. If you, okay, people have sex, yes. If your child says to you, whether you're mommy or daddy, and assuming it's with mommy or daddy, are you having sex? What should a parent say to their child?
You mean, how do you bring up the topic if you're trying to find out?
Well, I guess, you know, children are curious, and you said because of the exposure to all, you know, with the internet, etc. So if your 8-year-old says, you know, mommy, are you having sex? Or daddy, are you having sex? What do you say to them?
In my professional opinion, I mean, it depends on the comfort level of yourself, because don't open up a subject that you're not comfortable speaking about yourself. If you're not comfortable with talking about sex with your children on a personal level, then I would say don't do it. Try to deflect, say, what makes you ask that question? And then see what the answer is, because they could be actually seeking to really understand relationship dynamics, not so much sexual, because sex is out there and that's what they see. So they're going to gravitate to that and say, well, this is a normal part of a relationship. This is how I show and express myself. But what they really could be asking is, what behaviors are acceptable in relationships and what makes you and daddy or you and mommy close. Now, if you're comfortable with speaking about sex, then answer them. Say, yes, you and me and daddy or me and mommy, we share a healthy sex life. We love one another, and that's how, you know, you came about. And one day we hope that you would find a partner that you can share the same with.
Now, one discussion that I've had quite often in social media is whether or not, or at what age, should opposite sex parents be nude in front of their children. And some of the responses have been, they're varied. But the argument has been, well, it exposes them, it distorts their sexual perception. Do you believe that?
No. Nudity is very natural. If you raise your children around nudity, I'm not saying, free for all, just be around the house exposing body parts all the time or anything like that. But if you show that you're not comfortable within yourself nude, your child's not going to be comfortable nude. Your child is going to have hang-ups about their bodies, and this is where a lot of our females especially get body image issues from. We see our mothers constantly trying to cover, suck in, and talk about dieting and this and that and trying to hide their imperfections. That our daughters grow up and they do the exact same thing. They feel low about themselves, because then they look at their bodies and they say, well, this is shameful, this should be covered at all times. And then when they get to the age where they are in a sexual relationship with a man, one or two things happen. It's either they shy away. I know a lot of women that still will not have sex without any clothes on or in the daytime or anything like that, and they're married. Or you have girls who are now going to seek approval from boys. They're going to expose more just so that they can get that validation.
But even, like, I have sons, for example. So is it unhealthy for my sons to see me nude?
The ages of your sons?
4 and 8.
4 and 8?
Mm-hmm.
No. If you're comfortable and they're comfortable, like if they're saying, ooh, no, mommy, no, ooh, and then you ask them, why are you saying ooh?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you uncomfortable about mommy being naked? And then you can go from there and you can teach them, okay, it's natural to be naked, but if you would rather mommy not be naked, okay, then I'll cover up.
Okay.
Because you don't want to overstep boundaries and to make them feel uncomfortable.
Okay. And next, when we get back, we're going to ask Dr. Nakia about who exactly is the Sutra Doctor. We'll have more after this break. And we're back. And with us, we have in studio Dr. Nakia Walker. Now, Dr. Walker, let's talk about the Sutra Doctor for a moment. Now, I know Kama Sutra as 64 different sexual positions. Is there more to Kama Sutra than that?
There's a lot more to Kama Sutra. Kama Sutra, the 64 positions are kind of at the end of the book, where you've already developed your relationship. So the Kama Sutra takes you from being a single man or woman to knowing yourself, knowing how to take care of yourself, how to do things like keep yourself groomed, to bathe yourself, how to cultivate yourself, whether it be in the arts or professionally, so that you're more appealing to the opposite sex or the same sex if you choose. And then it goes on to teach about different forms of relationships, because monogamy is not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then it teaches you how to choose a partner. Should you choose to be monogamous and get married, it teaches you, okay, physically, what attributes are going to complement me? Also, it teaches psychologically and socially what attributes of another person is going to complement me, and me, the other person. And then it goes into sexual positions. And what a lot of people do not know is a lot of the sexual positions are based upon enhancing you not only for physical pleasure, but also spiritually as well as medically. Mm-hmm. So as a woman, you could have PMS, for instance. There are certain sexual positions that you can do with your partner, certain sexual techniques that can actually alleviate PMS.
I must try that. Now, during the break, you were telling me about an experience you had speaking to a Sudanese gentleman. You care to expand on that for our viewers?
Yes. When I was in college, I had finished my degree in neuropsychology, and I was completing my Oriental medicine degree. And in Oriental medicine, we are taught to, you have to attack the mind. You have to get inside the person's mind and find out what is their mental state. Because if you try to heal somebody on a physical state, if their mind is still diseased, or if their mind is thinking, oh, I'm not well, I'm not well, I'm not well, then their mind has actually the power to prolong the disease that they have. Mm-hmm. So I was speaking to a gentleman about this, and As you mentioned, he was from Sudan, and I was helping him with his English at the time. And he was speaking about the differences between men and women in the eastern part of the world and the western part of the world. And I found it interesting that on the western part, we try to think that men are more promiscuous. We try to think that, okay, men, boys will be boys, you go out there, you get all your experience, then you settle down. Whereas in the Eastern cultures, it's the opposite. And males actually, they're married virgins a lot more, and they take it very serious to keep chaste. They think it is very dishonorable for a man to be promiscuous. So it's the females who actually have more sexual freedom. You might not think so because media portrays Eastern women with the burqas on, especially in Islam, but they are way more sexually free than we are here in the West. So he began to introduce me to the Kama Sutra and to Tantra and things like that. And I was like, but how can you feel so comfortable talking to me about this? And he says, because it's a way of life. Mm-hmm. They have the rites of passages where they go through these things. So we may find things in a book, but this is a way of life for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think is one of the Western world's greatest misconceptions about sex?
One of the Western world's greatest misconceptions about sex, I would have to say, is that it is strictly for physical pleasure and it has no psychological or spiritual bearing. That is completely false. So when you hear people say, oh, I just wanted to let go, I just wanted a release, or it's just sex, it's never just sex. When someone says that, what they may be telling you is that they're not emotionally connected to you. They don't feel an obligation to you, but it's never just sex. It's always an energetic exchange.
Really? Is that why? Now, I know some Christian people who say if you have sex with someone unprotected over a period of time, that you create soul ties. Do you believe in that because of the bodies?
Yes. Several things go on. It is first of all, let me say this. It is very important to protect yourself during sex. Hands down, you have to do it. But on the flip side, condoms do present this barrier. There's not so much of an energetic exchange. So when you are actually having intercourse, what a lot of people don't know is that your cells begin to vibrate. And they begin to vibrate at the rate of 8 hertz. Around 8 hertz is also what is needed for your cells to regenerate and to multiply and, recreate. Because your body is constantly regenerating. Mm-hmm. So the term even making love, that's where it comes from. Because at 8 hertz during sexual intercourse, you are actually creating new cells within your body. So you're creating new life. So they say, oh, that's love, because they say that love is life. So when it comes to sex, you do have to protect yourself, but condoms create that barrier. Now, if you're having sex with somebody, it can just take one time. You can go in it and say, I'm attracted to this person. Yeah, we're going to have one good night, and I don't want anything after that. And then you can go in and you have created a bond that lasts for eternity. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that it affects your entire life and that you can't move on and now you're obsessed with this person, but you have created an energy that's there.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about self-exploration. Mm-hmm. Is that healthy? Because you have some people that have never done that before, particularly women, mm-hmm. who they don't know their bodies, they don't know what they like or how they would like to feel, etc. Mm-hmm. Some people think it's taboo and it's dirty. Mm-hmm. Do you encourage that? I mean, in your professional capacity?
This is what I would say. In my opinion, in my professional opinion, and my personal opinion, there is nothing dirty or kinky about sex. I don't use those terms in my personal life. I would not allow my partner to use those terms. I know, people get off on it and they say, oh, nasty, or I'm going to be nasty, or whatever. But there's nothing out there. As long as you're sharing it in a healthy mm-hmm. and positive way, there's no such thing as anything that's dirty. Now, sex begins with knowing yourself first. Like anything else, you cannot love someone else without first loving yourself. So how are you going to know how to share yourself sexually if you don't know anything about your body? Especially for women, we're taught about our bodies mostly by men. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, the medical community is run by males. the church is headed by males. So everything that we know about ourselves is based upon a male's perspective. It's not based upon our own perspective. So it is very important for women to explore their bodies and to find out, okay, this feels good, this does not feel good. Now that's self-exploration. That's totally different from masturbation. Masturbation is you're going in with the intent to physically pleasure yourself. Some people see that as something that's good or something that's bad, which is very subjective. It is good on the hand that a lot of mental disorders are linked to sexual frustration in women. Because women are taught to suppress their sexuality, we end up having a lot more frustrations and a lot more of acting out. So even when a male comes to me and he says, no matter what I do to make my woman happy, she's always arguing with me. She's cursing at me. She's becoming violent. And I always straight ask about their sex life because chances are she's not being sexually fulfilled. So she has a lot of built up aggression inside of her. So if you need to have a release and you don't know how to do that through meditations, then fine. But constant masturbation, like with sex toys, which I know is very big in Bermuda right now, that's very dangerous.
How so?
On one hand, it intimidates your partner. On the other hand, it makes your partner also lazy. He feels that I don't have to do this because now she has her toy. So why do I have to do this? Thirdly, it builds up unrealistic expectations in the female. No man can do what a toy can do. And you are training your body. Remember, your body has memory. You're training your body to only be stimulated and satisfied by a toy. So when it comes to a male, you cannot now feel sexually fulfilled through intercourse. So it's either oral sex or the toy. So that's very damaging.
And we're back. With us, we have Dr. Nakia Walker, Sutra Doctor. Now, Dr. Nakia, before the break, we were talking about female masturbation and exploration. Now, let's get into males. Is it healthy for men to masturbate for sexual pleasure?
Okay. This is a very taboo subject. So I'm going to approach it from the medical perspective. Male masturbation, it's okay. They're getting to know their bodies and they have a right to know their bodies just as much as females do. We as females, we try to say that we're emotional and males are more sexual. And we tend not to look at males as having valid feelings, which is very dangerous. So male exploration is very much a healthy part of male development. However, when a male has explored too much, or if he masturbates too much in his early years, he is training himself to not be able to actually last long. So you have a lot of guys who have premature ejaculation issues, and it's because they are training their bodies from young that, okay, I'm just gonna masturbate and get it over with quickly. Because remember, young boys, their whole goal is to do it before mommy or daddy walks in. Their whole goal is, okay, I'm in the shower where it's most comfortable, and I know I ain't supposed to be running all this water, and I know my mom's gonna start questioning things, so I have to hurry up and get it out of the way. And that leads to their first sexual experiences with women or with girls, where maybe they feel like they need to rush quickly before she changes her mind or quickly before her parents catches them. But they continue masturbating, and what they're doing is they're training their penis to not last long, because the penis is a muscle. It's a series of muscles. So muscle memory comes into play. So the more they masturbate, is actually they're
doing themselves a disservice.
Yeah, they actually are. And actually, they're weakening their entire body. It is said that the more that a man ejaculates, is actually the shorter his life will be.
Oh, wow.
Because when you eat food, especially for the male, over 85% of nutrients goes directly to the sexual organs, because the best of the best has to go to the sperm in order to reproduce. Your bodies are just set up that way. So when you masturbate and you're actually ejaculating, for the male, it's actually depleting 85% of the nutrients that he took into his body during that day.
Wow, that's intriguing. But yet, to some, masturbating is such a badge of honor. Wow. So, Dr. Nakia, can the penis be untrained?
Yes. The penis can be untrained through a series of massage. You have acupressure for it. You have breathing techniques. You have actually exercises that you do maybe while the male is urinating. So it's a lot of things that you can do. It's different muscles that you can actually strengthen through weight training and things like that. Your lower diaphragm. We're taught that we have a diaphragm up here, but there's actually 3 diaphragms in the human body, and the lowest one is actually your pelvic diaphragm, and that actually is what strengthens your whole pelvic girdle, including your sexual organs. So if males know about these things, they can have a much more fulfilling sex life.
Now, we talked about it earlier, porn. So many young boys have had their first exposure to porn through other males, whether it be dad, uncle, their friends, for example. I know it may seem silly for me to ask, but is porn unhealthy, or too much porn unhealthy?
Porn is very unhealthy. It paints an unrealistic picture of what sex is really about. It teaches the male to focus on his needs only and the pleasure that a woman is supposed to give to him. It teaches him that this is how he gets his aggression out, whether it be through actions or language, or, you know, you will see some porn, or a lot of porn nowadays, where it's actually very aggressive. There's a lot of slapping going on, or it seems like the woman is crying or she's being forced to do things, and men think that it's natural. Like, men actually think that a good woman does this. And it's a lot of women in turn who are now doing certain acts that they really feel uncomfortable with, because they feel, oh, it's 10-1 out there. I have to do this to get a man. I have to do this to keep a man. And it's very damaging to the human body, especially to the female. So we have higher incidences of fibroids, uterine cancer, cervical cancer. Nobody talks about that. Sex is very harmful to the female if it's not done correctly.
Okay. Now, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, Dr. Nakia, what other services do you provide? I mean, we talk about the sexual therapy part. You also do acupuncture. What else do you do?
Okay, I do acupuncture, I do massage, I do the sex therapy, and for people who always ask me, no, I do not have sex with my clients. There are professionals who do go as far to be sexual surrogates, but I choose not to do that. So the sex therapy would just involve teaching different techniques, teaching you how to communicate with your partner and things like that. Now,
you've just touched on it, but do you sometimes find it difficult for people to take you serious in this industry, because sex is such a taboo topic in Bermuda particularly?
Yes. I try. At first I was offended, but I try not to be offended anymore, because it just makes me realize how much people really do need the service. Because if you're looking at me in a certain way and you're saying, I can't take her serious because that's not a serious profession, but sex is a part of everybody's lives. Whether you're having it or you're not having it, whether you want it or you don't want it, it's still a very important part of your life. And when I see people with certain attitudes towards sex where they will say, oh, come on, she can't be serious, that lets me know these are the very people who need it.
Okay, and what's your website?
Oh, okay. You can look me up online at www.sutradoctor.com.
Okay. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you here with us. And thank you for demystifying some of the hang-ups and things that exist in Bermuda. So I really appreciate you being here. Yeah. And thank you for tuning in for another edition of Straight Talk. It wouldn't be possible without you, the viewers, so we thank you for their support. I'm your host, Carla Zuill, and we'll see you again soon. If you have a topic you'd like to discuss on Straight Talk, send an email to talk@channel82.bn.
Thanks for watching Straight Talk with